Welcome to medieval times. You want better sleep? You're about to be humbled. Because believe it or not, medieval peasants, yes, the people who used moldy straw as a mattress and thought shoes were optional, may have cracked the code to a full, satisfying night of sleep centuries before your $2,000 orthopedic mattress and lavender diffuser. But first, let's set the mood. Grab a blanket, maybe light a candle, if you're into the whole ambiance thing. And tell me, where are you watching from, and what time is it? I love seeing who's trying to sleep with 800 years of peasant wisdom whispered into their ears. Now, let's be clear. This is not a story about luxury. This is about survival sleep. Sleep so deep you drool directly into your hair and wake up confused about what century it is. The peasants didn't have blackout curtains, but they had something better: exhaustion, low expectations, and the kind of ambient noise that included sheep, chickens, and your neighbor snoring like he's negotiating with demons. Let's begin. Your name is Alric. You are 32 years old, which means you've lived too long to be considered young, but not long enough to have anyone take your complaints seriously. You live in a one-room home with a thatched roof, no ceiling insulation, and a floor that is technically dirt but functionally compost. You share your home with your wife Elswith, your 4 children, a goat that won't shut up, and a chicken named Frigga, who has made it her life's mission to sleep exactly where your feet go. And yet, you sleep like royalty. Not the modern spa day kind of royalty. I mean actual medieval royalty. Who, by the way, slept terribly because they were too busy being poisoned, married off, or plotting revenge on their cousin from Normandy. But you sleep like a sack of onions in a root cellar. Unmoving, content, slightly fermented. Why? Because peasant sleep wasn't just rest. It was strategy. You didn't scroll TikTok until 1 a.m. You didn't fall asleep with a podcast whispering marketing tips into your subconscious. You didn't need melatonin or white noise. You had a system, and it started the moment the sun went down. Peasants rose and fell with the sun. And not because they were in tune with nature, because candles were expensive, firewood was rationed, and if you stayed up too late, someone might mistake you for a witch. You went to bed early because you were tired, broke, and out of options. But here's the twist. Peasants didn't sleep all at once. They had something called 2 sleeps. That's right. Medieval people didn't pass out for 8 hours straight like a tired golden retriever. No, they slept in shifts. First sleep, then a period of wakefulness, then second sleep, like a nap sandwich, but you're the filling. That middle time? Oh, it was sacred. People prayed, meditated, whispered secrets to their spouse, or did, let's call it, medieval cardio. Then they went back to sleep. No stress, no panic, just vibes and maybe a candle that had to be relit with a burning stick from the hearth. This wasn't strange. It was normal. No one worried about broken sleep cycles. They didn't call it insomnia, they called it life. And somehow, despite living with fleas, cold drafts, and cousins who stole your blanket, they still managed to wake up rested. Still with me? Good. That was just the start. Because the secret sleep tricks these people used go way deeper, and we're about to sneak under the sheepskin blanket and find out. Let's talk about the bed. Or as Ulrich likes to call it, the soft-ish part of the floor where you're least likely to get a splinter. Because, spoiler, mattresses in the medieval peasant household weren't memory foam. They were literal sacks of straw, stuffed, tied, flattened, and maybe, if you were rich in goat favors, refreshed once a season. But here's the wild part. Despite the crunch, the musty scent of composting hay, and the occasional beetle performing a tap dance near your ear, these beds worked. Why? Because they were simple, and your body was too tired to care. When you've hauled wood, washed linens by hand, and walked 10 miles in shoes made of hope, your standards for comfort adjust real fast. Let's break down the medieval sleep setup. Alric style. You've got your sejed bed, a wooden frame if you're fancy. Otherwise, you're on the floor, with a mat of straw wrapped in old linens and a suspicious number of twigs. You fluff it by stomping on it or punching it into submission. Pillow. It's a sack, filled with whatever you didn't eat that week. Rags, grass, maybe one of Frigga's molted feathers for softness. Blankets? Thick wool, heavy, smells like last winter and faint regret. But here's the magic: that weight does something. Modern scientists would call it deep pressure stimulation. Medieval peasants would just say, it keeps the cold demons out. Either way it worked. They slept like stones. And then the layers. You didn't sleep in pajamas. That's a modern luxury. You slept in whatever you wore that day, unless it was soaked, bloody, or actively on fire. That meant your day shirt doubled as your nightgown. And if it smelled a little like onions and smoke, congratulations, you were normal. Want to know another peasant sleep hack? Body heat. That's right. You didn't sleep alone. You slept next to people, family, children, the goat, the chicken, and probably at least one uncle who overstayed his welcome by 5 years. This wasn't optional. It was insulation. When there's no central heating, you become the furnace. Yes, it was crowded. Yes, there were farts. But it was warm, and warm meant sleep. Oh, and remember how modern people spend thousands on white noise machines? Medieval peasants didn't need that. They had ambient livestock sounds. The occasional moo, a rooster adjusting its feathers in the dark. The gentle creak of the rafters as wind passed through the gaps. As MR. Medieval edition. Still sound uncomfortable? Good. Because that's the trick. Medieval peasant sleep wasn't about luxury. It was about necessity. You didn't need blackout curtains. You had no light to begin with. You didn't need blackout apps. You just needed to survive until morning without freezing to death, or waking up with a chicken on your face. And yet, Alric, he slept. He dreamed. He snored like a wagon full of grain tipping over. And he woke up with a crick in his neck and a sense of purpose. Because when the sleep came, it came hard. Not delicate, not elegant, but full-bodied, sweaty, deeply human sleep. And believe it or not, we've got more secrets. The smells, the rituals, the weird medieval sleep potions your ancestors swore by and sometimes choked on. You're not even halfway through this featherless bedtime journey. Let's talk about smells. Because if you think a lavender candle and a few drops of essential oil on your pillow qualify as sleep hygiene, allow me to introduce you to Alric's nighttime aromatherapy, a heady bouquet of goat, ash, onion sweat, and medieval feet. There were no linen sprays, no Palo Santo, no boutique chamomile diffusers. The only thing diffusing was the smell of someone's ale breath from 2 feet away. And weirdly, that helped them sleep. Why? Because the brain didn't have the luxury of being picky. The smell of the hearth meant safety. The scent of the damp blanket meant familiarity. Even the chicken dust, comfort. Peasants lived their whole lives surrounded by earthy, sweaty, borderline feral air, and their bodies associated that with rest. It's kind of like how some people can't fall asleep unless the room smells like their dog, their partner, or the inside of a public bus. Same principle. Fewer bathtubs. Now, let's move into the rituals. Because yes, even in a world without clocks, peasants had routines. Before bed, Alric might have done a few calming things. Drank a cup of herbal tea, translation, water with weeds in it. Told a story to the kids about how the moon controls when the rooster wakes up, it doesn't. Scratched his leg until it stopped itching or started bleeding. Either was a win. Checked to make sure the door was latched, mostly to keep in the animals, not out intruders. And then, here's the key move. He sat by the fire. This was the peasant's golden hour. No Instagram, no doom scrolling, just staring into flames like you've seen too much, and you're ready to astral project. The fire gave warmth, yes, but it also gave that soft flickering that our brains are wired to love. It's like being rocked to sleep by orange light. Honestly, better than Netflix. And if the fire was low, even better, because then it's dim, quiet, and the shadows move just enough to lull your survival instincts into relaxing for 5 minutes. Combine that with a belly full of porridge and joints that ache like they've been cursed by a mild wizard, and boom, sleep hits you like a shovel made of moss. But wait, there's more. Because some peasants, the fancy ones, made sleep potions. Not the fun kind with wine and berries. The folk medicine kind. You'd boil herbs like valerian, poppy, and wild lettuce until it tasted like pond water and regret, then drink it right before bed. Did it work? Sometimes. Did it also make you hallucinate a talking pig? Maybe. But hey, you weren't awake, so mission accomplished. Others would burn bundles of herbs by the bed. Mugwort for dreams, lavender if you could steal it from a monastery garden, and sometimes just dry grass because it smelled less like the chicken coop. And here's the real kicker, they didn't fight it. If they woke up in the middle of the night, first sleep done, they didn't spiral. They didn't Google is waking up at 2 a.m. normal. They didn't pace the house, cursing their ancestors. They just existed, quietly. Maybe they prayed. Maybe they stirred the fire. Maybe they whispered to their partner, or rearranged the straw mattress. And then when their body was ready, they fell asleep again, peacefully, without guilt, without apps. You think you've mastered sleep with your white noise playlists and magnesium gummies? Alric fell asleep to the sound of his own foot cramping and a goat chewing hay 2 inches from his face. And he woke up, ready to till a field. You ready to go deeper? Because we haven't even touched dreams, sleep positions, or the peasant's secret weapon, emotional exhaustion. Let's talk about dreams. Because if you thought modern people were weird about their dream interpretations, you haven't met a medieval peasant convinced their dream about falling into a cabbage patch meant a neighbor was cursing their bread. Welcome to bedtime in the year 1327. Alric. After a long day of field work and narrowly avoiding stepping on Frigga, again curls into bed next to Elswith. They fall asleep faster than a monk, after midnight mass. And not 5 minutes into sleep, Alric is already dreaming about something utterly unhinged. Probably a talking ox offering life advice, or a priest with 3 heads trying to sell him turnips. Because here's the thing. Medieval people took dreams seriously. They believed dreams were omens, messages, sometimes divine, sometimes demonic, sometimes just the result of eating too much questionable eel pie before bed. But whatever the cause, dreams were a thing. If you dreamt about fire, it meant passion or impending doom. If you dreamt about a river, it meant fertility. Or a neighbor was going to steal your goat. You never really knew. And if you told Editha your dream, she would absolutely interpret it for you, free of charge and full of judgment. A red fox in your dream? She said, say, you've been lying to someone, or someone fop's lying to you. Or it means rain. Either way, don't trust the baker. Now, let's address the other deeply underappreciated secret of medieval sleep, emotional exhaustion. You know how you lie in bed sometimes, unable to sleep because your brain keeps reminding you of that email you forgot to send in 2016? Alric didn't have that problem. Alric's brain was too tired. Emotionally, mentally, physically. You want to know the ultimate sleep aid? It's hauling firewood up a hill after arguing with your ox for 6 hours. By bedtime, he didn't have intrusive thoughts. He had nothing. A glorious, blessed, medieval brain empty. And if something was wrong, a fight with Elswith, a dispute with the tanner, didn't matter. He'd still fall asleep mid-stew because adrenaline runs out faster when your mattress is straw and you've been farming since sunrise. Meditation? Please. Alric had existential burnout and a splinter in his thigh. Let's not forget sleep positions. There weren't ergonomic sleep guides. No sleep training or What's your chronotype? Quiz. You fell wherever you collapsed. Side sleeping was popular. Fetal position was default. Back sleepers were viewed with suspicion. Stomach sleeping? Only for the deeply reckless or someone who ate too much barley and gave up on dignity. And you didn't sleep alone unless you were either a monk or very unpopular. Families shared beds. Children piled in. Occasionally a neighbor too drunk to find their house would just crawl in and get sorted out in the morning. Stranger in the bed? Shrug. As long as they didn't steal the blanket, it wasn't a big deal. And what did all this lead to? Rest. Not spa rest. Not treat yourself rest. But the kind that comes from being so completely done with life's nonsense that your body drags you into sleep like a blacksmith pulling iron into fire. And maybe that sip's the real secret. Let's talk about the dark. Because when we say medieval darkness, we don't mean romantic candlelit vibes or mood lighting on a dimmer switch. No, we mean pitch black, can't see your own hand, walk into a goat's butt level darkness. The kind that makes your brain shut down half its thoughts just to conserve energy. Once the sun was down and the fire burned low, that was it. You couldn't scroll. You couldn't read. You couldn't even dramatically stare out the window because there was no window glass. Just a hole covered in cloth, and maybe a few regrets. But this kind of darkness, it helped, because your body understood it was nighttime. Melatonin production, sky high, circadian rhythm, unbothered, moisturized, thriving. And most importantly, there were no distractions. If you were awake, you were either doing something extremely specific, or you were just waiting to fall back asleep. There was no stress about it, no productivity guilt, just, guess I'll pray for 15 minutes, then go back to snoring. And then there was noise. Not white noise, not rainfall audio on a loop. I stepped talking organic, unfiltered, medieval bedtime sounds. Here steps your playlist, a cow shifting its weight and farting softly, a chicken laying an emotionally dramatic egg. Wind slipping through the thatch like a ghost with seasonal depression. Your spouse grinding their teeth. The occasional distant scream, normal, don't worry about it. And somehow, it all worked. Because these weren't disruptive sounds. They were predictable. They were part of the nightly soundtrack. Comforting in a weirdly primal way. You don't need a white noise machine when you've got 8 relatives and 2 animals within breathing distance. All rhythmically doing their thing. Oh, and fear. Yes, actual fear. You'd think fear would keep you awake, right? But here's the plot twist. Peasants were so used to danger, it became background noise. There could be wolves, raiders, plague, famine. A man named Ulrich who keeps stealing from the root cellar, and yet people still slept, deeply. Because constant low-grade threat meant your brain eventually went, you know what? If we die, we die. But I'm taking a nap first. Also, let's not forget the magical motivator of all sleep. No expectations. No one asked if you were getting enough rest. No one wore an eye mask and tracked their REM cycles on an app. No one bragged about only needing 4 hours. They just slept, or didn't. And then got up and did what had to be done. It wasn't a performance, it was a function, and it worked. The best part? Peasants didn't try to fight their bodies. They listened. If they were tired, they slept. If they woke up, they waited. If a goat stepped on their chest at 3 a.m., they made a mental note to move it next time and rolled over. And maybe, just maybe, that's the secret we've been missing. Here sits the final truth. No one tells you about medieval sleep. They didn't sleep alone. Not just in the physical sense, though yes, Elric absolutely had 4 kids wedged around him, like sweaty little fire logs, and Frigga asleep near his knees, like a feathery heating pad. But beyond the cramped, chaotic layout of a peasant bed, there was something else, something quieter. They slept knowing someone else was watching the fire. Someone else was snoring beside them. Someone else was hearing the same night noises and breathing the same stale, hay-scented air. There was no isolation, no existential dread spiral at 2 a.m., just a constant awareness that you were part of something, part of a family, part of a home, part of a village. When the wind blew, and the dog barked, and a far-off scream echoed from somewhere in the woods, you didn't panic, you felt safe. Because fear didn't live in your chest alone, it was shared, managed, surrounded by people who would have heard if you'd called out, or who'd already shoved a pitchfork into the door just in case. And if you woke up sweating, heart racing, convinced something was wrong, you'd reach out. And someone would already be there. Elswith would shift beside you. One of the kids would mumble something about cows. Frigga would flap her wings dramatically, as if she was the one having nightmares, and that would be enough. You'd go back to sleep. No coping tools, no affirmations, no pressure to fix yourself before sunrise. Just a reminder that you weren't alone in the dark. And maybe that's the best kept secret of medieval sleep. Not the herbs, not the hay, not even the double sleep cycles. But that in the middle of the night, in the quiet, in the deep cold, someone was always there, breathing beside you, dreaming their own strange cabbage-related dreams, snoring like a choir of tired pigs, fighting the same cold, waking with the same aches, and still, somehow, going to bed with a full heart and just enough peace to let go of the day. So if you're lying there now trying to drift off, wondering if you've done enough, wondering if the day will come again too fast, let this be your reminder. You're not alone. Not tonight. Not now. You've got the night. You've got the stillness. And you've got this whole invisible village around you. Good sleep isn't always about silence. Sometimes it's just about not being the only one in the dark. Let's shift focus, just for a moment, to someone else in the village. Meet Wulfric, a man with questionable hygiene, 2 teeth that whistle when he sleeps, and the mysterious gift of being able to fall asleep anywhere. On a barrel, done, in a tree, if the bark's soft enough. Mid-conversation, ask Elfrida. She's still mad about that. Wulfric doesn't overthink it. He works hard. He eats what's handed to him. And when the sky goes dark and his legs stop moving, his body just shuts off. One time he fell asleep on his own foot and didn't notice until morning. His secret? He doesn't carry his thoughts into bed. He drops them by the fire like tools and picks them back up in the morning. Now Elfrida, on the other hand, she's a thinker. Sharp eyes, sharp elbows, sharp comments about your posture when you're not looking. She's the village baker, which means she's up before the birds and somehow always smells faintly of burnt rye and controlled rage. And at night, just like clockwork, she wraps her hair, folds her apron, flops onto her straw mat and mutters, "If someone wakes me up, I will hex their crops." And no one ever does. Because Elfrida has sleep boundaries. She made them up herself. She told everyone she needs exactly 6 hours and 1 dream about bread. Somehow, her body complies. Even the children know when Elfrida's sleeping. You don't ask questions. You tiptoe. You hold your sneezes. You wait for her snore before you even think about shifting your weight on the floor. That's the thing about this village. Every person has their own version of sleep. Some, like Alric, collapse. Some, like Elfrida, ritualize. Some, like Wulfric, do it accidentally. But the result is always the same. Rest that's woven into the rhythm of the village. There are no wrong ways, no 10-step guides, no guilt about sleeping too much or not enough. You sleep when you need to. You wake when the rooster screams. You exist in the space between, knowing others are doing the same. And if you stir in the middle of the night, maybe from a dream, maybe from a breeze, maybe just because your back has staged a rebellion against straw, there's no panic. You listen. You hear Elfrida snoring softly. You hear Wulfric mutter turnips in his sleep. You hear a log crack in the fire pit. And somehow that sip's enough. You don't need silence. You just need the reminder that this moment, this breath, this darkness, this warmth is shared. Not far from Wulfric's sleep-snore symphony and Elfrida's blanket of wrath lies Gisla, the healer, midwife, and the only person in the village who can make a tea that tastes like tree bark and still gets thanked for it. She doesn't sleep much. Not because she can stat, but because people keep needing her. Babies arrive at inconvenient hours. Goats break legs just before sunrise. Someone always wakes her with a knock, and the classic line, "I'm sorry to bother you, but something weird is happening with my rash." But when she does sleep, oh, it sets a ritual. Gisla keeps a small pouch of dried herbs by her bed. She burns a little mugwort, tucks lavender near her ear. She even has a pillow that's been stuffed with chamomile and goose feathers. Since the reign of a king no one remembers, she hums herself to sleep, low and steady, a lullaby passed down through women who never had time to write it down. She deserves 10 hours. She usually gets 4, and yet she sleeps well. Because Gisla doesn't waste time worrying about what's missing. She takes what she gets and savors it. And then there's Tostig, a man who thinks dreams are messages from his dead uncle, and once tried to decode his wife's sleep, mumbling with a stick of charcoal and a half-rotted cabbage. Tostig snores so violently, his neighbors once assumed he was summoning something, but weirdly that's his charm. He sleeps with commitment, arms out, mouth open, one leg dangling off the edge like he's clinging to a dream cliff. People make fun of him, sure, but in private, they're jealous, because he always wakes up, rested. No nightmares, no tossing, just blissful unconsciousness. And maybe the occasional dream about sword fighting a goose. And this is what it all comes down to. Sleep in this village isn't one size fits all. There are no charts, no guides, no bedtime influencers. There's just people, living close, sleeping closer, and accepting that not every night will be perfect, but every night is shared. You might wake up once. You might wake up 3 times. You might never even know you fell asleep, but you'll hear Elfrida shift. You'll hear Tostig choke on his own snores. You'll hear Wulfric whisper something about frogs again. And that sound, those small, sleepy reminders that you're surrounded, that sips peace. At the edge of the village, just past the leaning fence and the patch of herbs no one claims responsibility for, lives Oswin. He's old. No one knows how old, exactly. But old enough that people assume he's been through 5 plagues and 1 bad marriage. He doesn't say much, doesn't smile often, but when the sky goes dark, Oswin lights a single lantern, mutters something to his cat, and climbs into a bed that creaks louder than Tostig's knees. Oswin has a routine. Every night, without fail, he winds a bit of string around his finger while he waits for sleep. No one knows why. He says it keeps the dreams from slipping. Whether that's superstition or senility, no one questions it. Because Oswin sleeps better than anyone. Deep, still, as if the world can't touch him anymore. And in the morning when people ask him how he slept, he just grunts, which in Oswin speak means better than you, probably. Meanwhile, just across the lane, Hild sleeps like she's trying to win a prize. She makes a nest. 3 blankets, 2 furs, 1 aggressively flat pillow, and dives in headfirst like a soldier returning from battle. Hild works harder than most. She manages animals, the tannery, and a reputation for being terrifying with a bucket. But come nightfall, she saps out. Mid-sentence, mid-step. Sometimes even before she reaches her bed. Once, she fell asleep on a milking stool and stayed there until morning, completely unbothered by the goat chewing on her sleeve. "Wasn't the worst mattress I've had," she said, deadpan, before returning to her chores like nothing happened. And then there sits Ada, The Night Watcher. Not an official title, just a habit. Ada sleeps in short bursts, lightly, eyes half open, ears sharper than any owl. If something creaks, she hears it. If a baby stirs, she's already up. If the wind shifts wrong, she's by the door before anyone else even rolls over. No one told her to do this. It's just who she is. The one who notices. She'll nap in the afternoon, catch a few hours after breakfast. But at night, when others snore and drool and dream about eel pie, Ada listens. And because of that, everyone else sleeps easier. So maybe that sips another secret. Sleep is instead always just what you do. It's supsos who you trust to stay awake. In this village, someone always keeps watch. Someone always stirs the fire. Someone always hears the fox creeping too close to the coop. And knowing that seps what lets the rest finally let go. Still with me? Far out beyond the last thatched roof, the hills begin to whisper. The kind of whisper that makes Ada sit up without knowing why, makes Oswin grunt and pull his blanket higher, makes Frigga, asleep on Alric's foot, flap once in mild irritation and settle back into her chicken coma. The air has changed. A storm is coming, not the dangerous kind. Not lightning ripping the sky open. Just rain, thick and slow and steady, the kind that slaps the earth like a tired drum and stays a while. And if you're a peasant with sore joints and a leaky roof, you feel it before you hear it. Alric shifts under the blanket. He's not awake. Not really, but his body knows. He pulls Elswith closer. Her breath is warm against his shoulder. Somewhere nearby, one of the children kicks in their sleep and mumbles something about radishes. And then it starts. The first drop, on the roof. Then another. Then a dozen. Then thousands. Not a downpour. Not yet. Just the kind of rain that lulls things. Softens them. A blanket of sound wrapping around the hut, muffling the night like someone saying, "Shh, it sups all right now." In the square, Wulfric is sleeping through it entirely curled beneath a wool cloak, mouth open, face up, catching raindrops like blessings. He'll wake up damp and confused, but deeply refreshed. Elfrida, true to form, has already moved her cot further from the window. She muttered something rude about clouds and slammed the shutter shut just hard enough to warn the weather not to test her. Gisla puts another log on the fire. She knows this storm will bring babies early and aches out of bones. But for now, she curls under her fur wrap, the smell of mugwort still clinging to her sleeves, and lets the sound of the rain do what medicine sometimes can't. And Ada? Ada stands at her doorway for a long time, watching, listening, letting the rain patter against her skin like a lullaby in a language she forgot she knew. Because this kind of weather, this slow, steady, dream-thick kind of night, is a gift. You don't fight sleep when the world sounds like this. You don't question it. You don't analyze it. You just let go. And maybe you, listening now, wherever you are, can let it carry you too. Because this isn't just the sound of a village resting. That's the sound of 1,000 worries melting. The rain is steady now, that rare rhythmic kind that wraps around the village like a second roof, wet, wild, and strangely comforting. The kind of rain that doesn't threaten, it soothes. It tells you with every drop that nothing else is expected of you tonight. Just rest. In Alric's hut, the ceiling creaks and the fire flickers low. One of the older children gets up, wanders barefoot over the dirt floor, and tucks themselves back in beside the goat. No one stirs. It's a night for shifting bodies, half sleep, and dreams that slip in through cracks like mist. But not everyone sets sleeping. Because somewhere out there in the rain-soaked dark, someone is walking. It's not urgent, not a chase, just footsteps, wet ones, slow, squishing through the mud, like they've got nowhere to be but also aren't entirely sure where they came from. Maybe a traveler, maybe just Testig, maybe something stranger. That's the thing about the countryside. Weirdness has room to walk here. Ida hears it first. She doesn't panic. She just sits up straighter, narrows her eyes, and listens harder. One hand on the doorframe, one foot already pulling on her boots. Could be nothing, she whispers. Could be Toastig chasing a dream goose again. She hopes it is. And Gisela, half asleep, half aware, turns her head and frowns. Something's off. Not bad. Just unfamiliar. Which, in a village like this, is sometimes worse. Meanwhile, everyone else, they start dreaming. Wulfric is back on a frog in his mind, galloping through meadows, while Gilbert speaks riddles in perfect Latin. Elfrida dreams. She's baking a loaf the size of a bed, and she's yelling at it for rising unevenly. Oswin dreams of snow, or silence, or possibly just of not dreaming at all. And still, the rain continues. Calm, persistent, unbothered, because the beauty of nights like this is their fragility. The peace isn't permanent, but it's powerful. And even as someone walks through it, someone wet, someone quiet, the peace holds, because in this village nothing enters without being noticed. Not a fox, not a cough, not a strange wet figure padding across the road. And you, still listening now, still curled somewhere soft, still letting your breath match the rhythm of the falling rain, you don't need to worry. Ida steps already by the door. The fire sips still warm, and whatever walks in the dark, it knows to keep its distance tonight. The knock comes just past midnight, not loud, not rushed, just intentional. A soft thump against Gisela's door, like someone trying not to wake the dead, or trying not to be noticed at all. Gisela is already up. She doesn't startle. She never does. Her hands move by instinct, wrapping her shawl, steadying the candle, cracking the door with a quiet that speaks louder than any greeting. And there he stands. A boy, no older than 16, soaked to the skin, hair plastered to his forehead, clothes clinging to him like regret. He's not from here, not exactly, but Gisela knows his face. She's seen it once years ago when he passed through on a horse that looked more stolen than borrowed. Now, he sits alone. He doesn't say a word, just looks at her like he's afraid to blink. She steps aside, says nothing, just lets the door creak wider and lets the warmth of the hearth do the talking. Meanwhile, Ada watches from her window, eyes narrow, mind awake. She doesn't move. She just marks the moment. The visitor, the wet footprints, the fact that Gisela didn't raise the alarm, that's enough, for now. The village somehow still sleeps. Alric stirs, mumbles something about soup. Elswith pulls the blanket higher. Frigga adjusts her wing dramatically and settles deeper into the hay. And outside the storm shifts gears. No longer gentle, no longer shy. It begins to pour, the kind of rain that makes rivers out of roads and prayers out of curses. And yet, inside the huts, the peace holds. Because this is how it goes in places like this. You make room. You listen close. And you trust the ones who stay awake while you sleep. The boy sits by Gisela's fire now, not saying much. Just watching the flames like they're telling him a story he forgot he knew. She hands him a cup. Something hot. Bitter, herbal. It smells like bark. He drinks it anyway. No one asks questions. Not yet. That's not how the night works. And you breathing slow now. The weight of your own body sinking deeper into the warmth around you. Don't need to worry either. The rain sep's still falling. The fire sits, still lit. And everyone, even the stranger, is held by the same quiet rhythm. The storm outside has settled into a steady roar now, a deep, low hymn that wraps itself around rooftops and seeps into dreams. The kind of rain that doesn't knock. It drums, slow, ancient, like it remembers every storm before it. And in the huts, sleep begins to twist. Not in a frightening way, not quite, just deeper, stranger, the kind of dreams that take familiar things and move them an inch to the left, just enough to unsettle, just enough to notice. Alric is dreaming about a field he doesn't own. Rich soil, wheat as tall as his shoulders. But the stalks whisper when the wind moves. He can't hear what they're saying, but he knows it's about him. He keeps walking, keeps listening. Elswith dreams she's back in her mother's kitchen, but everything is too clean. No soot, no smell of bread. Her mother is smiling, but her eyes are wrong. Elswith doesn't speak. She just watches the bread rise and rise and rise until it pushes against the ceiling and cracks the beams. Wulfric, he dreams of frogs, obviously, but this time the frogs are lecturing him about personal hygiene. One is wearing a crown, one is wearing pants. It's all very serious. He nods along, confused but deeply respectful. Even Editha dreams, though she'll deny it come morning. Her dream is quiet. A hallway, endless, doors on either side, some open, some closed. Behind one, she hears chickens. Behind another, nothing. She keeps walking, keeps her broom close. Outside, the storm pulses. Inside, the dreams bloom. And Gisla? She doesn't sleep. She watches the boy, now dry, his eyes fluttering beneath closed lids. He's breathing deep. Caught somewhere between exhaustion and safety, she leans forward. Adjusts the blanket, checks the fire, sips her tea. She knows dreams speak louder on nights like this. And sometimes they're not just dreams. In the village, no one wakes. But something shifts. A window unlatches. A pot falls from a shelf. A child murmurs a name they said, never learned, and you still hear, still listening. Heart steady, breath slow, begin to feel it too. That soft slip between worlds, where sleep becomes story, and story becomes memory. By now the storm has become background, not noise, not distraction, just rhythm, like breath, like a lullaby hummed by something older than the village itself. It soaks the soil, the rooftops, the edges of the story, and in its presence, everything softens. The boy sleeps. His face, finally still, has lost that flinching tension. Tisla watches him, not like a stranger, like a memory she can't quite name. The way his fingers curl, the scar on his temple, something familiar, but she doesn't ask. Not tonight. Tonight is for warmth, not questions. In the huts, the dreams deepen. Alric now walks through fog. He doesn't know where he's going, but the path appears with every step. Behind him, he hears voices, ones he hasn't heard in years, some laughing, some calling his name. He doesn't turn around, he just keeps walking, always forward, always deeper. Elswith is trying to bake bread, but the dough is alive. It pulses under her hands, breathing. She keeps kneading. It hisses. She slaps it harder. The oven door opens on its own. She wakes up laughing. Just a little. Frigga, deep in her chicken REM cycle, kicks one leg and lets out a dream squawk so dramatic, it startles a mouse, 3 houses over, and in that moment, the village breathes together. Not in perfect sync. Not like a choir, but like a forest. Every home its own tree, every sleeper its own branch, and the rain, the wind, the firelight, that's the canopy holding it all together. Even Editha stirs, her brow furrows. She mumbles something about needing to sweep the in-between. No one knows what that means. She doesn't either, but she'll remember it come morning, probably, maybe. And you right now, listening, floating at the edge of your own sleep, feel that connection. To the straw mattress, to the firelight flicker, to the voices whispering just behind the curtain of dreams. This isn't set a village. It sets a shared sleep, one stitched together with rain and breath and memory. The fire in Jezel's hearth has burned low now, glowing, not flickering, just enough light to shape shadows across the stone walls, to cast gentle warmth over the sleeping boy, curled beneath a wool blanket. Rain whispers at the window. Steam curls from the edge of her tea. She doesn't sit sleep, not because she can't, but because she knows this kind of quiet doesn't last. She leans back in her chair, the one with the creak in the left leg and the cushion that's really just a folded old tunic. Her eyes wander, not with worry, but with memory, not toward the boy, now asleep in her care, but toward the window, the dark, the years, the people she once stayed awake for just like this. Outside, the village is silent. No dogs bark, no oxen groan. Even the wind has softened into a hush. It's the kind of silence that doesn't feel empty. It feels earned. Alric, still tangled in dreams, now sees faces, not ghostly, not frightening, just familiar. His father, sitting by a fire, his younger self chasing chickens, a field golden and wide, where no one has to work. He smiles. In sleep, he smiles. Elswith sleeps deeper now than she has in weeks. Her hands, always curled in tight fists from work, have opened, palms up, like she's offering something, or maybe receiving. Wulfric, still outdoors because no one remembered to bring him in, has been fully claimed by the rain. His blanket is soaked. His boots are off. A snail is climbing up his shin. He is blissfully unaware. Editha doesn't dream now, but she feels something, some old weight shifting off her shoulders. Like the night itself is sweeping her clean. She mutters, finally, and turns onto her side. And across the village, even the floors seem to sigh, because this is what safety feels like. Not silence, not stillness, but presence. Someone at the door, someone tending the fire, someone awake so you don't have to be. And you, wherever you are, eyes fluttering, body heavy, mind just barely hanging on, you pour part of this too. Not just a listener, a sleeper among sleepers. A name added to the quiet roll call of this strange, peaceful little place. Still with me? The night is no longer thick. It's ripe, not quite ready to let go, but no longer holding tight. That fragile hour where time hesitates, waiting for someone to blink first. And in Gisla's home, the embers are now only whispers. The fire has turned to memory. The boy shifts beneath the blanket, not waking. He exhales sharply through his nose, one of those involuntary dream sighs that sound like relief, like something inside finally found a soft place to land. Gisla finally closes her eyes. Not sleep exactly, just stillness. Her hand still wrapped around a warm mug, her other resting on the edge of the blanket just in case. Some part of her never stops watching, but for now she lets herself rest in the kind of peace you don't chase, the kind that arrives. Outside, the rain is quieter now. The loud insistence of the storm has faded to a soft patter, like footsteps walking away through wet grass. The wind's gone gentle again. The trees are dripping. The roofs are steaming. And all across the village, sleepers begin to shift in their nests. Alric turns his face into the blanket. Elswith stretches once, softly without waking. One of the children lets out a single triumphant fart. Classic. Wulfric opens one eye, sees the sky is still dark, and closes it again with the energy of a man deeply unbothered by mold or mildew. The snail has migrated to his knee. And Editha? Still. Absolutely still. But she sits, smiling now. Just barely. Maybe it sits the rain. Maybe it seps the warmth. Maybe it's the dream where someone else swept the entire house perfectly and no one left crumbs anywhere. But the smile is real. And in this moment, there is nothing broken. No panic. No plans. Just a sleeping village under a dark sky that is beginning ever so slightly to lighten. And you, right here breathing softer with each word, you have made it to the other side of night. Not rushed. not dragged, but gently carried. The night is no longer thick, it's ripe, not quite ready to let go, but no longer holding tight. That fragile hour where time hesitates, waiting for someone to blink first. And in Gisla's home the embers are now only whispers. The fire has turned to memory. The boy shifts beneath the blanket. Not waking, he exhales sharply through his nose. One of those involuntary dream sighs that sound like relief. Like something inside finally found a soft place to land. Gisla finally closes her eyes. Not sleep exactly, just stillness. Her hands still wrapped around a warm mug, her other resting on the edge of the blanket, just in case. Some part of her never stops watching, but for now she lets herself rest in the kind of peace you don't chase. The kind that arrives. Outside, the rain is quieter now. The loud insistence of the storm has faded to a soft patter, like footsteps walking away through wet grass. The wind's gone gentle again. The trees are dripping. The roofs are steaming. And all across the village, sleepers begin to shift in their nests. Alric turns his face into the blanket. Elswith stretches once, softly, without waking. One of the children lets out a single triumphant fart. Classic. Wulfric opens one eye, sees the sky is still dark, and closes it again with the energy of a man deeply unbothered by mold or mildew. The snail has migrated to his knee. And Etha? Still. Absolutely still. But she sets smiling now. Just barely. Maybe it sets the rain. Maybe it stops the warmth. Maybe it's the dream where someone else swept the entire house perfectly and no one left crumbs anywhere. But the smile is real. And in this moment, there is nothing broken. No panic. No plans. Just a sleeping village under a dark sky that is beginning, ever so slightly, to lighten. And you, right here, breathing softer with each word, you Fev made it to the other side of night. Not rushed, not dragged, but gently carried. The morning doesn't break. It seeps, a soft ooze of light through the mist, curling around rooftops, soaking into the straw like a whisper. This isn't set sunrise. It sets more like the world giving you one last chance to stay in bed. A hush that asks politely, "Are you sure you want to get up? Really?" Most of the village answers, no. In Alric and Elswith's hut, the first rays of light sneak through the gap in the wall and land directly on Alric's nose. He snorts once, offended by nature, and rolls onto his side. His foot lands in cold straw. He sighs dramatically. Elswith is still sleeping, her braid draped across her shoulder like it braided itself in the night. One of the children mumbles something about soup and flings an arm across their father's chest like a sandbag. Alric stays put. He's lost this battle. There's no dignity in arguing with a sleeping 6-year-old. The fire's out. The air is cooler now. Not cold, just awake. Crisp in that quiet way that makes you want to curl tighter under the blanket and pretend you live in a world where chores don't exist and bread bakes itself. In Gisla's house, the boy is still sleeping, but the tension has left him. He's sprawled now, limbs loose, mouth open. One hand is stretched toward the hearth, as if dreaming about warmth. Gisla watches him for a long time before moving. Her knees crack, her back pops, her joints hold a full conversation of complaint. She ignores all of it, puts the kettle on. No one speaks yet, but the day is already listening. Wulfric finally opens one eye, water dripping off his beard. He's soaked. He looks like he's been reborn from a swamp. His first thought, why does my knee feel crunchy? His second, did I eat a mushroom in my sleep? The answer is probably yes. The snail is still there. It is now a friend. They have a silent agreement. Across the village, windows creak open, shutters groan. Someone sneezes. Somewhere a rooster remembers he's late and screams at full volume like he's been disrespected. The goat begins headbutting the door for no reason. It's morning. And through all of this, the still sleeping ones stir. Editha is awake. Of course she is. She's been awake. She just hadn't moved. Now she does. Slowly, like royalty rising from a throne. Her back is a map of every storm she's ever lived through. She pulls her shawl around her and mutters, "All right then," to no one, or maybe to the sky. And still, for a few more minutes, the village remains caught in that perfect space between rest and return. That soft edge, the final pause, where the dreams haven't vanished, and the day hasn't quite made its demands. You right now are there too, still lying still, still listening, still part of this world where waking is gentle and nothing hurts yet. And maybe that sips the real magic of this sleep. Not the straw, not the dreams, but the fact that morning doesn't have to rush you. The day doesn't begin all at once. It peels itself open, like bark from a tree, like steam rising off warm bread, slow, subtle, and just a little reluctant. No bells, no alarms, just the quiet rhythm of bodies stretching, wood creaking, doors unlatching, and the smell of something almost boiling. Peasant mornings aren't a sprint, they're a slow unfolding. Alric is the first to shift properly, not sit up, just shift. That ancient roll to one side that all tired people do, where your spine makes a noise like an old gate, and your knees argue with each other in creaks and pops. He blinks at the rafters. One eye stays closed longer than the other. He hears Elswith breathe and knows she's still half asleep. Her favorite state, smart woman. Frigga is already awake, perched smugly on the windowsill looking at the gray sky like she owns it. She does. She flaps once and lets out a sound that can only be described as judgmental. The goat outside bleats like a lie. Ulrich groans. "Why are you all so awake?" he mutters. No one answers. Typical. Elswith finally opens both eyes. "Did you dream about bread again?" she asks. "No," he lies. She grins without looking. In Gisla's hut, the kettle begins to sing, not whistle, sing. Low, metallic, like it's remembering how to do it. She stirs a pot of something green and medicinal that smells like forest floor and hope. The boy, still curled on the pallet, shifts once but doesn't wake. Not yet. Gisela lets him be. The world will pull at him soon enough. Wulfric emerges from the side of the barn looking like a weathered boot that learned how to walk. Hair wet, eyes wide, shirt on inside out, probably dreaming of breakfast already. He yawns like it's a religious ritual. He sneezes so hard he scares 2 ducks. "Morning," he says to no one. No one replies. Not because they're rude, because they're still asleep. Editha steps outside, wrapped in wool and muttering something that might be a hymn or might be a curse. Either way, the frost on the grass gives way under her feet. She surveys the street like a general inspecting a battlefield. If anything is out of place, she'll know, and she'll fix it before anyone else even considers waking up. Meanwhile, inside every other home, the shift continues. People roll over, grumble, pull blankets tighter, rub their eyes, scratch whatever itches. Not because they're lazy, because they're human, because the body knows how to return when it's been allowed to rest. And this is part of the secret. The sleep wasn't stat perfect. It was crowded. It was scratchy. It was shared. But it ended gently. On your time. In your rhythm. With the fire burned low, the rain cleared out, and the world not demanding everything from you the moment your eyes opened. And you, wherever you steer lying, eyes still soft, body still caught between warm and weightless, you 4 still inside this morning too. No one sets rushing you. You don't have to get up yet. Let the goats yell. You 4 allowed to stay here a while longer. Eventually movement arrives. Quiet at first, like a thought you're not sure is yours. A creak of floorboards, the scrape of a stool, a cough, then another. Then, from somewhere deep in the village, someone laughs. Not loud, not forced, That soft, snorty kind of morning laugh that slips out when someone says something stupid while still half asleep. You don't even know what was said. You just laugh because someone else did. It spreads slowly like sunlight through fog. Ulrich sits up. He does it like a man who's considering filing a formal complaint to his own body. Every joint comments on the process. His back crunches. His shoulder twinges. His foot is asleep and angry about it, but he's upright. He glances around the room. All the kids are still asleep except the youngest, who is staring at him like an owl. "Why are you awake?" he whispers. The child shrugs. "You made a fart noise in your sleep." Ulrich glares. Elswith chuckles without opening her eyes. He stretches, not gracefully, not like a knight preparing for battle, more like a sack of potatoes attempting yoga. But it gets the job done. Gisela pours tea into a chipped mug and takes her first sip of the day. It tastes like roots and reason. She finally stirs the pot of greens she's been pretending isn't burning. The boy is still out cold. She'll let him sleep a bit longer. He needs it. Whatever brought him here didn't leave much rest behind. Wulfric, damp and confused, has managed to get half a boot on. He eats a piece of bread he found in his pocket. No one knows how long it's been there. He doesn't care. He declares it crunchy with mystery and considers it a win. He walks through the village like a myth with poor posture. Inside other homes, breakfast begins. And by breakfast, I mean anything warm that can be chewed. Porridge, mostly. Oats or barley or whatever's still clinging to the bottom of the storage jar. Bread, if it didn't go moldy. Butter, if the cow felt generous. It's not fancy, it's not plated, it's hot, and it's enough. The air fills with the smell of smoke, grain, and whatever someone just dropped into a pan and hoped would work. It always does. Mostly. Bare feet pad across cold floors. Chickens flap down from rafters. Children argue over spoons. Someone yells, "Who took my onion?" like it's a national crisis. Editha is already organizing something. No one asked her to. She just exists in a permanent state of productive menace. And still, the morning stays soft. No one sits running. No one sits shouting. Even the goat's early temper tantrum has mellowed into passive bleating. The village is fully awake now, but not alert, not sharp, just present. And you? If your body is still heavy, your limbs half melted into the surface beneath you, your breath still tethered to the rhythm of a world that doesn't sit rush, then you're doing it right. Because here waking is just another kind of rest. Just vertical sleep. Just motion made gently. Morning conversation in the village doesn't start with announcements. It starts with grunts, followed by sighs. Then a few sarcastic comments passed between two people who haven't looked each other in the eyes yet, but know exactly what the other one dreamt, ate, or tripped over in the dark. Ulrich walks outside with a bowl of porridge in one hand and a child clinging to his leg like a sleepy burr. He nods to Wulfric, who's sitting cross-legged in the dirt, muttering to a snail. It's unclear whether the snail is the same one from last night. It has that look. Wulfric salutes. Morning. Pause. Dreamed of bread horses. Don't ask. Ulrich doesn't. He just sits. Elswith appears behind him a moment later, still braiding her hair, already judging him without saying a word. She hands him a spoon he forgot he needed. That's love in this village. Elsewhere, Editha stands in the square like she's scanning for sins. She sips hot broth from a wooden mug and occasionally yells things like, "That bucket's crooked," or "The sun's late." She doesn't need to be doing this. It's just her default setting. But today, even her judgment is slower. Sleep softened her edges. She won't admit it, but someone saw her humming earlier. Gisela finally opens her door. The boy walks out behind her, clean-faced, fed, wearing a dry tunic 2 sizes too big. He looks around like he's not sure he belongs in sunlight. A few people glance up, nod once, then look away. No one asks. That's how the village welcomes you quietly. By mid-morning, the stories begin. Elswith says she dreamed of rising doe that grew legs and tried to escape. Alric says he was chasing a pig who stole his shoes. One of the children insists they flew. No wings, just vibes. Everyone nods like that, makes perfect sense. Wulfric claims he had a premonition involving frogs with tiny swords. Again, no one challenges him. This is, tragically, not the weirdest thing he said. Even Editha offers a dream detail. I was sweeping the moon. No one comments. Everyone just lets that hang in the air like incense. Respect. Because these stories aren't just morning chatter, they staffer part of the ritual. The transition from the dream world to the waking one. And that's another secret. Peasants didn't rush it. They let the dreams linger. They gave them air, even the silly ones. Because the line between dreams and memory was thin, and sometimes truth slipped in sideways. You, right now listening in from your own quiet place, maybe under covers, maybe somewhere warm, still tethered to your own fading dream, you peer part of this too, this shared exhale, this gentle recollection, this soft, ordinary miracle of waking up and remembering how to speak. The day begins, not with a bang, but with a shuffle. Boots thump on packed dirt. Water sloshes in buckets. A cartwheel creaks under weight. It's always known. There's no rushing, no barking orders, no need to prove anything. Just the gentle, satisfying rhythm of a body that slept well now remembering how to move. Alric wipes a smear of porridge off his shirt and heads toward the fields with a rake slung over his shoulder. He's not in a hurry. He knows the weeds will wait. Everything waits here, and maybe, for once, he's not dragging himself into the day like it owes him something. He feels present, heavy but not in a bad way. Like bread fresh from the oven, dense, warm, useful. Elswith hums to herself as she lays out laundry to dry. The sun, slow to arrive, finally shows up like someone late to a feast, and hoping no one notices. It casts light over the clothesline, over the goat pen, over Frigga, who is now perched smugly on the fence, judging the cloud formations like she controls them. Gisla is kneeling in her garden, checking the mint leaves for rot. The boy follows behind her, not saying much, but staying close. He's carrying a basket that's half full and half forgotten. A bee buzzes by. He flinches. Gisla doesn't. If it stings, she says without looking. That's the way of things. He doesn't respond, but he doesn't leave either. Wulfric is trying to fix a barrel with a stick, 3 rocks, and what appears to be deeply misplaced confidence. He fails, loudly, then tries again. This time, it holds, barely. He celebrates by eating the other half of his pocket bread, crunchier than ever, possibly fossilized, still counts. Editha is already halfway through sweeping the entire path through the village. Not because anyone told her to, just because it must be done. No one dares interrupt. A dog tried once. It still walks with a limp, and through all of this, there's still peace. Yes, the work is back. The aches, the weight, the constant list of things that need doing. But something has changed. Not the tasks themselves, but the people doing them. Because when you sleep well, really sleep, you don't just rest your body. You recalibrate your soul. And the villagers know this. They walk with straighter backs today. They speak softer. They laugh a little more easily. Even the air feels lighter, like it sits, still holding echoes of the night sip's deep stillness, like it sits whispering, remember this, carry it, and maybe, just maybe, you feel it too. Wherever you are, whatever time it is, maybe something inside you has softened, settled, realigned, because sleep like that doesn't stay behind. It moves forward with you, into the morning, into the chores, into the ordinary miracle of simply being alive and not quite tired. By mid-morning, the hum of the village has become a kind of music, not composed, not rehearsed, just lived. The scrape of a hoe through soil, the thump of cloth against a washboard, the creak of a door, a child's sudden unfiltered laugh, followed immediately by a stern voice yelling, "Don't climb that. It's not chaos. It's not noise. It's rhythm." And the best part? No one sits rushing. Alric kneels in the field, hands deep in the earth, pulling weeds with the satisfaction of a man who finally slept through an entire night without dreaming of exploding bread. His hands are calloused, but calm. He isn't sighing every 5 minutes. He isn't dragging himself from row to row. He's just working, the kind of work that feels like belonging, not because it's easy, but because it's his. Elswith is by the well, filling a bucket. Her dress is damp from where the rope splashed, and she barely notices. She's chatting with another woman, Ida, the tanner's wife, about nothing important. The way the wind shifted, the smell in the bakery, whether or not the rooster has finally lost his mind. They don't talk about sleep, but it's in their voices. Slower, smoother, less clipped at the edges. Wulfric is building something. No one knows what. Possibly a fence. Possibly a stage for his frogs. He's humming a song with no tune and pausing only to wipe mud on his shirt and mutter, "Structural integrity is for nobles." He's happy, and somehow it holds. Editha has taken a break. Let me repeat that. Editha has taken a break. She's seated under the tree near the square, holding a cup of tea and staring into the distance with the intensity of someone considering judging a bird. She doesn't move. She doesn't sweep. She's still, and no one says a word about it. Because everyone feels it. The village is different today. Not louder, not busier, but fuller. Like the space between things has been padded with peace, as if sleep has wrapped itself around the bones of the day and said, "You can go on now. Isif got you." Even Gisla walks differently. Not slower, just steadier. She carries herbs in one hand and a loaf of bread in the other, nodding to those she passes, like she knows something they don't but isn't ready to tell. The boy from the night before walks behind her, holding nothing, but he doesn't look lost anymore. And you, still here, still nestled into the gentle folds of this story. Maybe sipping something warm or just listening with half-closed eyes. You fear part of this rhythm too. Even in your stillness, you move with it. Even without lifting a finger, you belong to it. Because real rest doesn't end when you wake up. It echoes. In your voice. In your pace. In the space you give yourself to simply be. By late morning the sun has committed. No more hiding behind fog or clinging to the dew. It climbs slowly but with purpose, casting soft gold across rooftops, over wooden fences, across muddy boots and resting tools. There's heat now, but not heavy yet. Just waking warmth. The kind that makes you close your eyes for a second and breathe a little deeper. The village leans into it. Alric sits on the edge of a cart, drinking from a clay mug that smells like herbs and barley. He doesn't say much, just watches the way the light bounces off the buckets near the well. Elswith joins him, not because she needs to, just because it feels right. They sit, they sip, they sip, they say nothing. And in that silence something precious passes between them, a kind of shared gratitude for a night that didn't ask them to fight it. Around them, the rhythm continues, but softened. The blacksmith's hammer isn't striking quite so fast. The children shouting is a little more giggle than scream. Even the chickens, normally agents of pure chaos, are pecking calmly through the grass like monks. Gisla delivers a small wrapped bundle of herbs to a neighbor with a sore hip. The boy trails behind her, still quiet, but no longer shrinking from the world. When someone offers him a roll, he takes it without hesitation. That's how healing begins here, not with speeches, with bread. Editha, still beneath the tree, still unmoving, accepts a second cup of tea from a passing girl. She says nothing, just takes it, sips, raises one eyebrow in what might be approval. The girl walks away beaming like she just received a medal. Editha's standards are notoriously high. Her praise is the village's rarest export. And through it all, there's something unspoken hanging in the air. A shared acknowledgement that last night mattered. That kind of rest doesn't go unnoticed in a place like this. When it arrives, it rewires the way people treat each other. Tempers stay tucked away. Bickering fades before it starts. People wait an extra second before interrupting. Smiles last longer. Work still gets done, but there's a softness in the way it's done. Even the animals notice. The dog by the mill hasn't barked once. A cat has taken up residence on the sunlit bench outside the chapel, completely unbothered by passing feet. A donkey nuzzles the side of the fence, not because it wants anything, just because. That's not a perfect morning. There are still weeds, still aching joints, still chores. But today, those things are manageable. And maybe that's the greatest gift sleep ever gave them. Not just escape, not just dreams, but enough peace to come back to the day as someone worth being. And you, still lying, still here in this moment, still breathing with the rhythm of a place long gone, but somehow familiar, this is yours too. This quiet, this ease, this reminder that rest is not a luxury, it's a return. By midday, the village has hit its stride, not rushing, not frantic, just the gentle hum of things getting done, chickens chased, wood chopped, cloth hung, bread cooled on open windowsills. The air smells like grain, sweat, and something sweet. Someone forgot they were boiling. You can almost feel the hours stretching themselves out like limbs waking up after a long nap. Elric leans against the fence. He spent the morning mending. It's crooked. He knows it. He also doesn't care. It's standing. That's what matters. Ellsworth passes him a hunk of bread with something spread on it that may or may not be honey. He eats it like it's the best thing he's ever had. Because it is, right now. When you sleep well, food tastes different. Everything does. Children race past, shrieking with joy, dodging mud puddles and each other, occasionally colliding like half-trained goats. One of them shouts that they're a wizard now and throws a stick in the air. It lands on Wulfric, who barely flinches. "Respect the staff," he grunts, holding it aloft with exaggerated dignity. A cheer erupts. The child bows. A new game begins. Editha rises from her seat for the first time in hours. The tree sighs behind her. She surveys the square like she's checking for evidence of rebellion. There is none. She nods once, then disappears into her home. The earth itself seems to exhale. Gisla finishes tending to an elder's ankle, now bound tight and properly soothed with something that smells like crushed thyme and rain. The boy watches quietly, learning without asking. When the elder offers him a boiled egg, he accepts. No questions, no ceremony, just life shared, slowly. And as the sun sits highest in the sky, casting short shadows and long warmth, a kind of wordless knowing settles over the village. They all felt it last night. The deepness, the silence, the absence of dread. And maybe no one says it. No one names it, but in the way they stand, sit, walk, and talk, you can see it. That sleep changed something, smoothed something, held something in place long enough for it to heal a little. They all carry it. In their breath. In their ease. In the way no one snaps today. Even the rooster is taking it slow, only yelling when necessary. And maybe you feel it too. Maybe your own body. Still quiet, has begun to register it, not just as a story but as a permission to slow down, to carry peace forward, to remember that the world doesn't crumble when you rest, that the fence can stay crooked, the chore can wait, and the bread will still rise, even if no one watches it. By late afternoon, the light has changed. It leans now, golden, low, soft at the edges. It pours across rooftops, rolls lazily across fields, and soaks into the wooden walls of huts, like it knows they've earned it. The wind shifts, not stronger, just cooler, like a sigh after a long sentence. Everything begins to slow, not because anyone said to, but because they all feel it. The invisible nudge of day beginning to exhale. Alric sets down his rake with the reverence of a man ending a conversation with the earth. He's not finished, but he's done. There's a difference. His knees crack as he stands, and he gives the field a look that says, "Tomorrow, maybe." The field doesn't argue. Fields never do. Elswith is at the basin, hands in warm water, scrubbing something that may have once been a shirt. She's humming again, nothing tuneful, just that kind of human noise that says, "I'm here, I'm fine, the sky hasn't fallen." Behind her, one of the kids is stacking firewood into a pile that leans wildly but stands proud. "That'll fall," she says gently. The child beams. "Then I'll build it again," she smiles. Lesson complete. Wulfric is laying on his back beside the well, arms crossed behind his head, eyes half closed. He's doing nothing. Absolutely nothing. And in this village, that's considered advanced productivity. A nearby goat wanders past, sniffs his boot, and moves on without judgment. Gisla gathers herbs into a pouch, her fingertips stained green, her mind already half with the next person who'll knock on her door at midnight, with a cough or a question or a baby on the way. The boy still follows her, still silent. But now when she looks back at him, he doesn't flinch. He just walks beside her, matching her pace like it's always been that way. And Iditha is back on her porch, blanket around her shoulders, sipping the same tea from earlier like it's gotten better with age. She says nothing, but she watches everything. If peace had a guardian, it would be her. No one messes with the calm under Iditha's eye. And as the light thins, the village listens. Not with ears, with bodies, with breath, with bone memory, because they Seb lived enough days to know when to begin winding down. There's Seb's no announcement, no bell, just instinct. A quiet agreement between humans and sun and firewood that says, "It's Seb's almost time. You, still here, still breathing with the pace of this story, maybe feel it too." That shift, that invitation to soften, to prepare, to ease into the next chapter. Not with effort, but with surrender. Because rest isn't set just what happens at night. It sets what starts now, in the shadows lengthening, in the work being set down, in the warmth still lingering from a dream not quite forgotten. Evening in the village doesn't arrive. It settles, like dust on a windowsill, like steam rising off broth, like the last word in a sentence that didn't need punctuation. The light is now amber, melting into the corners of each home, stretching the shadows long across the ground, like someone tucking them in for the night. The day is no longer working. It steps remembering. Arik pours water from the kettle into a chipped bowl. Steam rises. He dips a cloth, wrings it out, and presses it to his face. He exhales, not because he's hot, not because he's in pain, just because it's what his body does when it knows it's allowed to slow. Elswith hands him a bit of bread and a half apology for how hard it is. He smiles. "My teeth were bored anyway." They chew in silence, content. The children begin to quiet, like stars fading before moonrise. One by one they trail indoors, leaving behind abandoned wooden toys and the scent of mud and grass. A single shoe lies forgotten in the path. No one picks it up. It'll be there tomorrow. Time is not a thief here. It's a companion. Wulfric lights a small fire near the edge of the square, not for cooking, just for company. The glow paints his face and flickers. Around him, a few others gather. No conversation yet, just warmth, just presence. A chicken hops onto his lap. He lets it stay. They have an agreement. No crowing, no complaints. Gisla stands by her doorway, brushing crushed lavender from her apron. The boy leans against the wall beside her, watching the smoke curl up into the evening sky. He doesn't ask questions, But when she offers him a mug of tea, he takes it. No words, just steam, just connection. And Editha, still in her chair, still sipping something that smells like chamomile and hard-earned wisdom. She hasn't spoken all day, but no one minds. Her silence holds the weight of peace. If anyone's keeping count, this might be the calmest she's been in 5 years. A miracle. Or maybe just a good night's sleep, which is, in its own way, the same thing. And all across the village, something softens. Doors close, not slammed. Candles flicker, not flare. Laughter drifts, not loud, just enough to remind everyone that they're not alone. Because this is where sleep begins. Not with pillows, not with nightfall, but with this, the slowing, the shifting, the collective decision to return inward, one by one, hut by hut, fire by fire. And you still listening, still safe in your own little space. Feel that, don't you? That slow, holy unraveling of the day. The world dimming, not shutting off. Inviting you not to stop, but to settle. Night doesn't fall, it folds. Like a thick blanket drawn up slowly over the shoulders of the world. The sky has turned from gold to blue, from blue to violet, and now deep, ancient black. No stars yet. Just the first hints. Like a secret the sky is whispering only to those who take the time to look up. The village is ready. Alric stacks a bit of wood by the hearth, not for heat, just for comfort. The day didn't chill, but the body remembers what it's like to go cold, and fire is its favorite answer. He tosses one more log into the low flame, watches it catch, and exhales through his nose. No urgency, just warmth. Elsweith folds blankets. The baby is already asleep. One of the older kids is curled in the corner, mumbling through the edge of a dream. The goat outside headbutts the door. That's just how he says goodnight. Gisla tucks a second layer over the boy. He's asleep again already. Mouth slightly open, hand curled in a fist near his chest, like he's holding on to something too quiet to name. She brushes the hair from his forehead and doesn't speak. Not every kindness needs witness. Some are offered like prayer, silent, sacred, enough. At the edge of the square, Wulfric leans back in his chair, feet propped on a stump, watching embers rise into the dark like fireflies, trying to remember where they came from. Someone sits beside him. They don't talk. Just pass a tin cup between them. The stars are coming out now. A few at first. Then more, then all at once. Inside every home, the same ritual unfolds. Feet are washed. Candles are pinched. Doors are latched with that soft click that says, "You're safe now." No one says goodnight. Not out loud. It's understood. Like the way a mother pulls the blanket higher without needing to be asked. Like the way the village breathes slower after sunset. And Editha? She's standing now. Just for a moment, looking up at the sky with her arms crossed, as if daring it to start something. It doesn't. She nods once. Satisfied, then steps inside. Her candlelight glows behind the shutters. That's how the rest of them know it's okay to go to sleep. Because Editha's watching. And if Editha sleeps, it means the world is for now in order. You, still here, still nestled, still listening from wherever you are, feel it, don't you? That hush, that slow return, that moment when the body stops waiting for more and says, "This is enough." No screens, no buzz, just breath, firelight, and 1,000-year-old rhythm saying, "You are allowed to let go." Now, the village sleeps. Not all at once. Not perfectly. Not like a bedtime story where everyone closes their eyes at the same time and drifts into choreographed dreams. No. Sleep here is earned, not gifted. It rolls over the huts like fog, creeping, settling, lingering. Alric lies on his back now, hands behind his head, watching the flicker of firelight play across the beams above. He doesn't think about the field, not about tomorrow, not about the bent rake or the goat. With attitude, he just lets his thoughts drift. A bit of bread, the laughter by the well, the way Ellsworth hummed earlier and didn't even notice. That's what he carries into sleep. Ellsworth turns toward him, one hand on his chest like a paperweight anchoring him to the bed. She's already half gone. Her breath is steady. The baby sighs in the corner, curled like a comma between sentences. The children have become shapes under blankets. No longer individuals, just soft limbs and tangled hair, and dreams nobody else will ever know. Gisela is writing something in her mind. A recipe? A name? A moment she doesn't want to forget. She's already tucked in. The boy beside her sleeps with one hand under his cheek, brow relaxed. His chest rises and falls in rhythm, with the wind brushing against the window. For the first time in weeks, maybe longer, he doesn't wake up scared. Wulfric is snoring, loudly. No one stops him. His snores are like punctuation marks in the night, expressive, a little obnoxious, but ultimately familiar. Across the square, a rooster stirs, confused by the moonlight, but thankfully decides not to crow. This time, Editha lies flat, arms at her sides, blanket tucked tight around her like she's preparing to be judged by the sleep gods. She's out, solid, deep, the kind of sleep you only get after years of fighting it and realizing the fight gets you nowhere. Her dreams are her business, but tonight she dreams soft. Outside, the world keeps turning. Stars drift across the black above. A fox tiptoes past the fence line. The wind sighs against the rooftops, like it's checking to make sure everyone made it to bed, and it finds they did. No one is awake now, not fully, but you are. Maybe just barely. Maybe one eye closed, the other fluttering. Maybe your body is already melting into whatever you're lying on. Blanket, mattress, pillow, floor. Maybe you're like Wulfric's chicken, one foot still awake, the rest surrendered to gravity. That Sep's all right? Because this moment is part of it too. The drifting, the waiting, the listening. Not for danger, not for noise, but for the quiet that tells you you're allowed to rest. No one needs you right now. The fire will last. The goat is locked in. The sky is holding steady. This is the deepest part of the night. The hour that belongs to no one. The hour when the fire is more ember than flame, the air more whisper than wind, and sleep is no longer something you fall into. It's something that holds you, not tight, but completely. Every home in the village has gone quiet. Ulrich is fully asleep now, his jaw slack, one arm flopped over his head like he's surrendering to a dream, the kind of sleep where you could carry him out into the field, lay him in the mud, and he wouldn't notice until breakfast. Beside him, Ellsworth breathes evenly, her hand still resting where his heartbeat lives. Not dramatic, not romantic, just steady, honest, present. One child mumbles. Another shifts. A foot is kicked. A blanket stolen. A small elbow digs into someone's ribcage. No one wakes. These are the midnight negotiations of shared sleep. In Gisela's hut, the boy turns over, his brow furrows, not fear, processing. His dreams are strange now, half memory, half magic. A doorway, a voice he recognizes but can't name, something about warmth and bread and maybe a dog that talks. He stirs once, then goes deeper. Wulfric mutters in his sleep. It sounds like, "Tell the frog I'm not wearing shoes." Classic. He rolls over and lets out a snore so honest it would terrify a deer. His fire has gone out, but the heat still lingers in the rocks around him. A chicken is tucked under one arm. It seems fine with this arrangement. Editha doesn't move. Not a twitch, but behind her eyes something unfolds. Her dream is structured, ordered. A house being swept by a broom made of stars. Every corner spotless. Every shadow acknowledged, then dismissed. In the dream she smiles. No one will ever know this happened. That's the kind of woman she is. Outside the night stretches, The stars above are brighter now, unobstructed, sharp enough to feel like they're watching, not judging, just keeping company. A breeze moves through the treetops, curling down into the village like a lullaby for those still hanging onto the edges of wakefulness. And somewhere near the chapel, a candle still flickers behind a shutter, not because someone is afraid, not because something that's wrong, but because in this village, sleep is protected, watched over, shared. Even silence has a heartbeat here. And you, wherever you are, however you arrived, are part of this now. Not a visitor. Not just an observer. You stir on the floor beside the hearth. You share the slow breath in the still room. You're the memory someone's dreaming about but doesn't realize they've kept. This is the kind of rest you did chase. It comes to you and stays. Now we at your past sleep. We stare in the dream layer. That thick velvet space where nothing is real but everything feels true, where footsteps don't need floors, where people speak without sound and time folds in on itself like dough, soft, strange, and full of surprises. This is not fantasy. It's memory with an imagination. Alric is sitting at a table that stretches forever. Bowls of stew, loaves of bread stacked higher than sense. He's not eating. He's watching people come and go. Faces he knows, faces he doesn't. All of them laughing like they're in on something he hasn't figured out yet. He reaches for a spoon. It turns into a sprouting onion. He nods like that. Makes sense. Elswith walks through a forest that pulses with breath. Every tree hums. Every branch bends toward her. In her hands, a basket. In the basket, light. Actual light. Glowing, shifting, and warm. She doesn't ask why. She just carries it, carefully, lovingly. In Gisla's dream, she's a girl again. Running. Barefoot, fast, heart wild. No pain in her knees. No weight in her spine. The herbs she picks bloom as she touches them. And ahead of her, her mother's laugh carried on the wind like a song you forgot you loved. The boy dreams of water. A river so clear it reflects stars even at noon. He wades in. It doesn't ripple. It welcomes. A dog walks beside him. No leash. No name. Just there. Guarding him even here. Wulfric is flying. Obviously. Arms out. Beard blowing backward like a flag. No wings. Just the sheer chaotic determination of someone who once slept in a tree for a bet and won. Below him, frogs cheer. One throws a fish in celebration. He salutes and soars. And Editha? She dreams of sweeping, as always. But tonight, the floor never ends. Every step forward makes it longer. But she doesn't stop, because in this dream, the dust whispers secrets. And for once, she listens. These dreams aren't wild escapes. They're echoes, reflections, deep soul mirrors polished by silence and firelight. This is what sleep gives you when you let it go far enough. Not just rest, but revelation. Outside, the village is motionless. No wind. No stirring animals. Even the trees seem to be holding their breath, as if they too are listening in. And you still hear, maybe dreaming yourself by now, or hovering on that warm edge where thought dissolves into story. You are part of this dreaming. You are the field in Alric Sep's vision, the light in Elswith Sep's basket, the rhythm in Gisla Sep's feet, the breath between Wulfric Sep's wings, the dust Editha finally lets be. Because rest, true rest, is not emptiness. It's that's fullness. You didn't yet know you needed. There sets a feeling now. A pressure shift in the dark. Subtle. Like the sky is clearing its throat. No light yet. Just a faint silver smudge where black used to be. The dreams haven't ended. They're just beginning to let go. The way a tide pulls back, reluctant. The way a blanket slips down your shoulder in the early hours and you barely notice. Elric stirs. His eyes don't open, but something in him shifts. A twitch in his fingers. A sigh that starts deep in his chest. He doesn't remember the onion spoon. Not yet. But its feeling lingers, the strange comfort of a world where nothing made sense, and somehow everything was safe. Elswith mumbles in her sleep. Her hands fold closer to her chest. The basket of light is gone now, but the warmth remains in her palms. She'll wake later and wonder why her first breath of the day felt like relief. In Gisla's home, the boy begins to stir, not awake, just hovering. His dog dream fades, but the calm it brought settles deep in his bones. He turns over, breathes in the faint scent of dried herbs and wood smoke, and smiles without knowing why. Wulfric releases a half-snore, half-laugh. In his dream he landed. The frogs gave him a cape. He will never remember this, and yet all day he'll feel inexplicably majestic, like he's part of something heroic and slightly damp. Editha blinks. Just once. Then closes her eyes again. She remembers nothing. But for the first time in weeks, she'll wake without the familiar ache behind her eyes, as if the night itself scrubbed something clean while she slept. Outside, the village is still cloaked in night, but it's a loose cloak now, frayed at the seams, ready to be shed. The stars are fading, gently. The wind returns, not strong, just enough to rattle a shutter. A rooster stirs but holds back, as if waiting for permission. The earth breathes in. And you, still floating, still warm, still wrapped in whatever cocoon you have made for yourself. You are right on the edge. Not pushed, not rushed, just gently escorted toward morning. Because this is how peasants did it. Not alarms, not urgency, not dread, but transition, dream to thought, thought to breath, breath to body, body to day. Morning doesn't it arrive like a parade? It unfolds. The first thing to wake isn't a person, it's a color, pale blue edging into black, stretching across the sky like a brush dipped in dawn. Then comes the smell, damp earth, cooling ashes, a trace of yesterday's bread crusted on a hearthstone. Then the sound, a creak of wood, the rustle of straw, a child turning in their sleep and sighing like they've been through something epic and personal. Alric doesn't open his eyes yet, but his breath changes. Deeper now, less dream, more body. Aware again, somewhere behind his eyelids, the fields are waiting, not urgently, just patiently, like old friends sitting on a bench, ready when he is. Elswith reaches across the blanket, finds his hand, squeezes it once, then lets go. That's all. No words, no smiles, just shared space. She'll open her eyes soon, but not before she's good and ready. She knows how to guard peace now. In Gisla Sip's home, the boy is sitting up. He doesn't know why, doesn't remember when, but something in the morning called him gently, and he answered. He watches the gray light crawl across the floor and wonders if it was always this slow. Then he smells tea. That's how he knows he's safe. Wulfric is still asleep. Of course he is, but his foot moves, his mouth twitches. Somewhere a frog senses that the prophecy is complete. And Editha, already up, standing by her door, blanket around her shoulders, cup in hand, watching the light shift across the square with the eyes of someone who's seen thousands of mornings and still treats each one like it might surprise her. She hasn't swept anything yet. That's how you know it's early. And all across the village, the air is still, but not silent. There sets a hum now, a promise, that today will not rush you, that the sky is patient, that the fire is ready, that the work will wait until the breath finishes its morning stretch. And you, still here, still soft, still safe, you don't need to get up. Not yet. Maybe not for a while. Let this morning meet you exactly where you are. Let it rise without pressure. Let it unfold without demand. Let it teach you that good sleep isn't just about how you rest, but how gently the world welcomes you back. The village begins to stir, not loudly, not all together, but like a field. waking one blade of grass at a time. There's no bell, no horn, no rooster screaming himself hoarse out of spite. Not yet. Instead, there's a wooden spoon tapping the side of a pot, somewhere deep inside a home that's just beginning to stretch. A door creaks open and doesn't close again. A cough, a laugh, the creak of a stool being dragged closer to the fire. Alric sits up, just sits. No theatrics, no groaning. He stares at the faint light, pressing against the edge of the shutters, and thinks, this is enough. Not the sun, not breakfast. Just this, the act of sitting in the warmth of a day that didn't ask for anything yet. Elswith is brushing her hair with her fingers, methodical and quiet, pulling it back into a braid she's tied the same way for 10 years. She ties it tighter today, not because anything's wrong, but because everything feels good and she wants to hold on to it. A child climbs over Alric's lap. Another is still asleep, face planted into the mattress like they've decided to become part of it. The dog is awake and tail thumping. The goat outside bleats once, as if to remind everyone that no matter how restful the night was, he still has opinions. In Gisla's hut, the boy lights the fire for the first time. He fumbles, strikes twice. Then it catches. Gisla says nothing, just sets a mug beside him with a nod. He doesn't smile yet, but you can see it waiting behind his lips. Wulfric rises like a man being pulled from a swamp. Covered in straw, smug as ever, slept like a boulder. He mumbles to no one in particular. He stretches so wide it sounds like rope pulling taut. A nearby duck is unimpressed. That's all right. Wulfric's not here for approval. And Editha? Already sweeping, but softer now. No judgment in it, just rhythm. And that seps how the village wakes. Not because the sun commands it. Not because someone yells, but because their bodies say Wista ready now. It's a ritual but not a performance. A coming back, not dramatic, not demanding, just natural. The kind of waking that can only happen when sleep didn't just take the edge off, but restored something essential. And you still with me, still drifting at the edges of your own sleep, or maybe already blinking at the ceiling. You purr not behind. You haven't missed anything. The world doesn't demand your full attention yet. Let your breath stretch. Let your eyes stay closed. Let the light come to you. The fires are lit again. Not raging, not roaring, just steady, soft, reliable. A warm heartbeat in the center of every home. The kind of flame that doesn't shout, just says, you're safe now. Let's begin again. Alric drops a handful of wood onto the embers. The fire accepts it like an old friend. No sparks, no fuss, just heat. He crouches beside it, watching the glow settle in. Elswith appears beside him with a pot in hand, full of something that smells like oats, water, and hope. She sets it down on the edge of the flame and leans against his shoulder. Neither of them speaks. Not because they're tired, but because the silence between them is enough. One of the children is awake now, hair a total rebellion against gravity, staring into the pot like it might answer life's bigger questions. The dog stretches, spins once, and flops dramatically beside the hearth. In a world this quiet, even his tail wag feels like applause. Gisla has crushed herbs into a paste and is stirring it into porridge, mint and honey, and something floral she won't name. The boy, now fully folded into the rhythm of this place, sets out bowls without being asked. One slips from his fingers, but he catches it. Gisla raises an eyebrow. He just grins. That's how trust builds here, not in words but in gestures. Outside, Wulfric is already chewing something, probably yesterday's bread, possibly bark. It doesn't matter. He's smiling. The kind of crooked smile that only comes from a man who knows his dreams involved frogs and dignity, and he's fine with both being slightly compromised. And Editha? She has tea, freshly brewed. She's not sweeping right now. She's sitting at her table with both hands around her cup like it might tell her the future. Her windows cracked just enough to let in the scent of chimney smoke and wet grass. It's not for ventilation, it's for presence. Breakfast spreads slowly across the village. Not in plates, in atmosphere. Steam rising from bowls. Bread broken in silence. Hands passing mugs without eye contact. The kind of morning where the food isn't the center, it's the anchor. Because this is what sleep makes possible. Not just dreams, not just recovery, but gentleness. A softness in how people speak, in how they move, in how they lift a spoon to someone else's sips, bowl and say, "Here, try this." And you, whether you steer still tucked in, or feet on the floor wrapped in your own silence, you sure part of it too. This slow return, this warm beginning, this quiet bowl of something simple and good. Because rest is a net just about closing your eyes. It stuffs about how you wake, how you carry that stillness into the noise, how even porridge can feel holy when made by hands that slept well. The day begins, gently, not like the world has flipped a switch, but like someone lit a second candle from the first. Quiet, continuous, warm. Alric steps outside after breakfast, wiping his hands on his shirt, which somehow makes it cleaner. He surveys the field with the steady stare of someone who has no illusions about what comes next, but also no dread. That's what rest does. It doesn't erase the work, it softens the approach. Elswith is feeding the chickens. They crowd her like rowdy, feathered customers. She tosses grain with one hand, swats with the other. She's not angry. It's just the morning dance. They squawk. She smirks. Life continues. Children carry water in dented buckets, sloshing more on themselves than on the path. One sings a song with no melody. Another trails behind pretending a stick is a sword or a spoon or maybe a dragon. No one corrects them. The world is large enough for both imagination and mud. Wulfric hauls a sack of something questionable across the square, talking to it like it might answer. "You and me, Barley. We've got history." A breeze catches his hair. He stops mid-stride and looks up. The sky is a soft gray, the kind that holds back rain not out of mercy, but out of strategy. He nods like the clouds just gave him advice. Keeps walking. Gisla sits on a stool, outside her door, grinding herbs with one hand, weaving twine with the other. The boy kneels nearby, organizing tools with the quiet focus of someone pretending not to enjoy it. She doesn't interrupt. Letting people do good things in silence is her favorite form of teaching. Editha is washing linens. She slaps each one against the stone with the kind of force that implies both cleanliness and authority. No one questions her, not even the linen. Behind her, steam from the kitchen rolls out the door. She hasn't said a word yet this morning. She hasn't needed to. And all throughout the village there's a stillness inside the motion. Work is being done. Tools clang. Doors swing. Water spills. Goats argue. But underneath it all is that same hum from the night before. That slow, unbroken rhythm of people who slept well and carried it forward. Because when sleep does what it's meant to, it lingers. It's in the way someone pauses before raising their voice, and chooses not to. It's in the extra second someone takes to pass a cup with both hands. It's in the way no one looks at the sun and sighs. You, yes, you, are still part of this. Whether your feet are already on the ground or still cocooned in blankets, whether you've begun your day or are still waiting for the world to catch up to you, there's no hurry here. Let the chores be slow. Let the breath stay deep. Let the peace remain portable. Here sips something we rarely say out loud about medieval life. It was hard, really hard, and still people slept. Not because they had nothing to fear, but because fear was everywhere, and sleep was the only thing that still felt like theirs. This village? It's no stranger to hardship. The crops don't always grow. The weather doesn't always care. There are days when the bread is thin, and the sky is heavy, and the aches in the joints outvote the hope in the heart. And yet, they rest. Not because they're lazy, not because there's nothing to do, but because they've learned that rest is survival, not in theory, not in poetry, in practice. Alric sharpens a scythe with methodical strokes. Each scrape is a reminder that this tool will feed his family, but only if he holds up first. He pauses, rolls his shoulder, feels the dull echo of sleep still protecting his spine, and he breathes. Elswith kneads dough on the stone slab. Her arms ache, but the rhythm helps. She hums, not for beauty, but for endurance. The same song her mother sang, maybe her grandmother too. The dough rises slower than usual today. She lets it. Not everything needs to rush. Wulfric has stopped building for a moment, to lie on the ground and stare at the clouds. He calls it sky maintenance. A few others laugh. One joins him. No words. Just shared stillness. It's their version of a coffee break, except with more clouds and less caffeine. Editha has finished her sweeping. She's now sitting on a bench with her feet in a basin of warm water and a scowl that says, "I've earned this." And she has. She always does. Gisla wraps a poultice, with linen soaked in herb steam, and the boy helps fold the corners. They work in silence, but there's a glow in the air. Like sleep hasn't left. It's just watching from the doorway. Because here sits the real truth. For peasants, rest wasn't sit passive. It wasn't stat retreat. It was resistance. A body that sleeps is a body that heals. A village that rests is a village that survives. And a people who remember how to lie down together at night, who share blankets and dreams and firelight, are harder to break than any sword-arm army could imagine. You, listening now, carrying your own weights, your own worries, maybe you needed to hear that. That sleep is strength. That stillness is strategy. That letting go, even for a while, is not giving up. It's rebuilding, quietly. Sleep in this village is never an ending. It sits a return. As the sun begins to droop in the sky, slanting golden light across worn rooftops and casting long shadows down the dirt paths, the people don't panic. They don't scramble to squeeze more from the day. They settle. That's the difference. Alric finishes tying the last sheaf of hay, wiping sweat from his brow with a sleeve that smells like grain and work. He looks at the sky, nods once, and starts walking back home, not dragging his feet, not racing the sun, just returning, one step at a time. Elswith brushes flour off her apron, sees the dough is done rising, and knows she's done too. The oven still needs tending, the coals still warm, but her body says, enough, so she listens. The loaf will be ready soon, and so will she. Wulfric, who spent the better part of the afternoon reorganizing tools and losing track of half of them, now lies on a bench with a damp cloth over his face. Someone nudges him with a boot and asks if he's asleep. Not yet, he mutters, but I'm practicing. Everyone accepts this as truth. Gisla is bottling tinctures now, labeling them with a shorthand only she understands. She hums as she works, low, steady like her own lullaby. The boy sweeps up herb stems without being asked. He's still quiet, but now he whistles. Even Editha, who has been muttering about a crooked fence since lunch, finally puts down her broom. Her face softens. Her shoulders drop. She doesn't sit yet, but the decision to stop is already made. And that's where rest begins. The decision, and all across the village, you can feel the rhythm shift. It's dot's not over. It's dot's not finished. But it sits winding down. Chickens are herded. Tools are leaned gently against walls. Doors are unlatched, but not shut. Fires are poked, but not fed too much. Even the goats seem quieter. The village isn't preparing to sleep. It's moving with sleep, like they've all entered a kind of agreement with the night. We'll meet you there, slowly, softly, together. And you, yes, you still here, still breathing with this story, still floating somewhere between awareness and release. You sure moving with them too. You fear part of that rhythm now. Not an outsider, not a guest. You shed walking the same path home. You fur setting your tools down. You purr hearing the sound of a world letting go. Twilight settles like a blessing. It doesn't rush in. It drifts through branches, across rooftops, over tired hands and bent backs. That soft in-between color, the one that isn't quite day and isn't quite night, coats the village like a second skin. Everything looks a little quieter in it. Even the animals, even the air. Alric is seated outside his hut, boots off, toes in the dirt, arms resting loosely on his knees. He doesn't need to say anything. Just being still is enough now. He's watching the sky melt from gold to violet, like it's a performance put on just for him. And maybe it is. Elswith joins him with a bowl of stew, still steaming, still simple. She hands it over without ceremony. He takes it with a nod. She sits beside him, leaning into his shoulder just enough to feel anchored. They don't speak, not because there's nothing to say, but because silence has earned its place. Gisla lights a small lantern inside her hut. It's not for light, not really. It's for comfort, a little flicker that says, "You're home now." She runs her fingers along the edge of the table, humming as she tidies up what little there is to tidy. The boy is already curled in his corner with a blanket and a full belly. He's trying not to fall asleep yet, but the weight of peace is pulling at his eyes. Wulfric has gathered 3 others by the fire pit near the well. Not on purpose. He just sat there long enough that they came to him. Now they're passing around a bottle that tastes like apples and smoke, telling the kind of stories that get better every time you tell them. "I once wrestled a pig the size of a cart," he says, slurring only slightly. No one believes him, but they all smile anyway. Editha sits on her doorstep, blanket across her knees, holding a mug like it's a shield and a friend. Someone asks her a question. She grunts. That's her version of a goodnight kiss. And the stories keep flowing. Soft ones, small ones. The kind that settle under your ribs instead of on your skin. Not legends, just truths. "I saw a fox today near the woodpile. The baby said Ted Mud stet before thet mother. Remember when we thought spring would never come?" No one interrupts. No one brags. It's not about being heard. It's about being near. Because this too is part of sleep. The slowing of the voice. The unwinding of the mind. The sharing of one last thought before the dreams take over. And you, wherever you are, however far from straw and firelight, you hear by the hearth too now, wrapped in that same dusk, cradled in the same calm, because sleep doesn't just come from closing your eyes. It comes from letting yourself belong to a moment like this. Night is here now, not arriving, not sneaking, just here. The stars have claimed the sky fully. Pinpricks of old light humming above a village that has already begun to close its eyes. The firelight flickers lower. The voices soften further, and what remains in the air is not conversation, not labor, not noise, just presence. Alric is asleep already. His bowl rests beside him. His feet are bare. His breathing is slow. Elswith pulled a blanket over his chest without waking him. She's still sitting up, just for a little while longer, watching the sky like it's the last thing she wants to forget, before sleep finds her too. Inside their home, the children are piled together in a tangle of limbs and soft snoring. The kind of sleep you only get when the day didn't ask too much of you, and the night offered to hold what little it did. Gisla sets the lantern down on the windowsill, now barely a flicker. She checks the boy's blanket one more time. He's fast asleep. One hand curled in the fabric, the other twitching slightly with the traces of dreams. His breathing is soft, steady, belonging. Wulfric finally lies back on the grass. Arms folded, eyes closed, still smiling. The storytelling circle has scattered. One stayed behind, now snoring beside a stump. A mug rolls gently in the dirt. It's okay. It will be there tomorrow. The frogs, real or imagined, have gone silent. Even they understand the mood. And Editha, she steps already in bed. Blanket tucked. Window closed. Teacup empty. No more sweeping tonight. Everything that needed cleaning has already been forgiven. And all across the village you can feel it. That deep, wordless peace that doesn't just settle on people, but through them. Not sleep as escape, not sleep as recovery, but sleep as identity. Because these peasants, these quiet, strong, ordinary people, have built something rare. A life not free of struggle but full of rhythm. A world where the body is allowed to ache. Where the mind is allowed to wander. Where the soul, every night, is allowed to rest. And you've walked with them through it, step by step, breath by breath, all the way from twilight to dreamlight. You are part of this now. You are the flicker of fire in the corner. You are the whisper of straw under wool. You are the last exhale before the first dream begins. So, let go. Close your eyes. Sink into this sleep, not just as rest, but as return. And when morning comes again like it always does, you'll rise with them too. Thank you for being here. Good night.